really cold.
Who left her out here in the snow?
Chicago in a whiteout. Adrian Westcott, a CEO who remembers nights no one opened the door, spots movement in a junked SUV behind a repair shop. A barefoot boy clutches a cracked lighthouse nightlight. Adrian drapes his coat, loosens his red tie, and says, "Come in, son." Then a man steps out with a wrench. If saving the boy means burning his perfect life, will Adrian do it? Chicago in a whiteout. Adrian Westcott, a CEO who remembers nights no one opened the door, spots movement in a junked SUV behind a repair shop. A barefoot boy clutches a cracked lighthouse nightlight. Adrian drapes his coat, loosens his red tie, and says, "Come in, son." Then a man steps out with a wrench. If saving the boy means burning his perfect life, will Adrian do it? Snow sweeps across the glass of the Westcott Tower, a steady white curtain over Chicago at midnight. Inside the boardroom, the city glows in 1,000 squares of light. Yet Adrian Westcott feels the old winter inside his chest. He is mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with deep blue eyes and dark brown hair threaded with gray, a red tie neat against a crisp white shirt. He looks like power, and often he is, but he remembers a night on a stoop when no one opened the door. "Unanimous," the CFO says. "We move forward on the West Branch project." Adrian nods, distracted by a thought he does not voice. Another luxury tower, more glass on the skyline. He built a life of lobbies that smell like citrus and cedar. Still, a memory summons itself, the burn of wind in his lungs, the snap of ice against a cheap coat, the sound of a lock that would not turn for a boy who asked to come in. He folds the agenda and slips it into his briefcase. Tori Lamb, his attorney, gathers her files. "You okay, Adrian?" He studies the site map on the table, a grid of parcels along Western Avenue, a ghost of a neighborhood stamped in printer ink. "What used to be here," he asks, "before we stamped out the names?" "Body shops, storage, a few storefront churches, not much left," she says. "The economics make sense." "Economics often do," he says. "People are messier." She tilts her head. "Do you want a community review?" He exhales. "Yes," quietly, not the performative kind. "If we remove something that holds heat for people, we replace it with real shelter, not just rhetoric." Her smile is small, surprised. "I'll draft it." The board filters out with quotes and jokes about flights to Miami. Adrian lingers. When the room is empty, he opens his briefcase and takes out a small lighthouse nightlight, ceramic and chipped at the base, the kind a child might twist into a socket and watch glow on bad nights. He bought it years ago, for reasons he could not explain. It has lived in his drawer, unlit, waiting like a promise he never made. He sets it on the table and plugs it into the floor outlet. A soft amber halo spills across polished wood. The little tower stands, steady and silly in a room made for quarterly victories. He watches it for a beat, and in that faint glow he can hear the winter he survived, and the boy who did not know where to go when it was late and the air hurt. Eddie, his driver, knocks on the glass. "Car's ready, sir." Adrian unplugs the lighthouse and tucks it into his coat pocket. "Take the SUV, not the sedan," he says. "I want to see the West Branch area before I sleep." "In this snow?" "In this snow." They descend to the private garage, the concrete breaths cold. The SUV coughs to life, heaters humming, wipers thudding a rhythm that feels like an old song. Adrian loosens his red tie a notch, a habit when the city turns white. The tower doors seal behind them. They roll into streets that have learned to suffer winter without complaint. "Home route?" Eddie asks. "Or the long way?" "The long way," Adrian says. "Western to the river, cut through the industrial strip." Eddie glances at him in the mirror. "Checking on your empire or your conscience?" Adrian almost smiles. "Tonight, I am not sure there is a difference." They pass a diner that never closes. Steam fogs its windows. A woman laughs inside, hands around a mug, palms warmed by something simple and right. Adrian feels an ache. He has chefs who know his diet and a penthouse with glass walls. But the sound he misses is the soft clink of a spoon in a chipped cup and a voice that knows his name without checking a calendar invite. "Cold one," Eddie says. "I remember worse," Adrian answers. "The kind that steals your breath before you think to keep it." He does not say where he learned that, or how many nights he measured warmth by the glow of a hallway under a door that never opened for him. He pulls the lighthouse from his pocket and sets it in the cup holder, not plugged in, just present. It is a foolish object for a man who signs steel into the sky, but tonight he wants a small thing with a clear purpose. A light that says, "If you see me, you are not lost." They turn off Western onto a stretch of warehouses and chain link, the wind keening between corrugated walls. The snow is thicker here, a heavy hush that swallows sound. A repair shop sign swings on a single bolt, creaking. Adrian watches the alley mouth, the dim glow of a half-broken security light, the shape of a car frame stacked against the fence. "Slow down," he says, though he cannot yet say why. The wipers knock. The heater hums. Somewhere in that dark, the past he carries and the night ahead begin to move toward each other. The SUV crawled through the blizzard, tires crunching over frozen slush. Adrian leaned forward, his blue eyes narrowing on the shadow behind a leaning repair shop. A junked SUV sat crooked, half buried in snow, its windshield coated in frost. Something inside moved, a faint twitch against the dim light. "Stop here," Adrian said. Eddie frowned. "Sir, this isn't a good neighborhood." Adrian had already unbuckled. The cold hit him like a wall when he stepped out, his tailored coat no match for the Chicago wind slicing through the alley. Snow swirled into his collar as he trudged toward the vehicle, his polished shoes sinking into icy drifts. He cupped his hands against the glass. The beam from a nearby streetlight revealed a small figure curled on the back seat. Bare feet, skin pale against the dark interior. A boy. Adrian tapped gently on the frozen glass. "Hey," he called softly, voice muffled by the storm. "Can you hear me?" The boy flinched but didn't open the door. Adrian tugged at the handle. It gave way with a groan, hinges stiff from rust. The smell of damp upholstery and gasoline stung his nose. Inside, the child trembled violently, wrapped in nothing but a thin sweatshirt. His lips were blue, his breath shallow. "Easy," Adrian whispered. He shrugged off his wool coat and draped it over the boy's shoulders. The child's bones felt sharp beneath the fabric. Adrian pulled off his leather gloves and then his gym socks, tucking them onto the boy's feet. The boy tried to speak, but only a ragged sound came out. "You've been out here long?" Adrian asked. The boy blinked slowly, voice thin. "It's just sleeping in the car again, till morning." Adrian's stomach twisted. The words pulled him backward in time, to a night when he was 10, huddled under a stairwell with snow drifting over his shoes, waiting for a door that never opened. He clenched his jaw. "What's your name?" "Milo," the boy breathed. Adrian noticed what Milo held in his chapped hands. A broken lighthouse nightlight, its plastic cracked, bulb long gone. The boy's fingers curled around it like a lifeline. Adrian touched the little lighthouse gently. "This yours?" Milo nodded weakly. "Mom gave it before." His voice trailed off. Adrian swallowed hard. The object felt like fate, a lighthouse meant to guide lost ships home. "Listen to me, Milo," Adrian said firmly. "You're not staying out here tonight. I won't let that happen." The boy's eyes flickered with doubt, as if promises were things made only to be broken. Adrian slid an arm beneath his fragile body and lifted him. Milo weighed almost nothing, like air. The boy buried his face against Adrian's chest, clutching the lighthouse to his heart. Snow battered Adrian's back as he carried Milo toward the SUV. Eddie stepped out alarmed. "Sir, what are you—" "Hospital," Adrian snapped. "Now." Eddie opened the rear door quickly. Adrian settled Milo inside, wrapping the boy in a blanket from the trunk. But before Eddie could start the engine, the repair shop door screeched open. A man stumbled out, broad-shouldered, eyes mean under a knit cap. He held a rusted wrench in his hand, knuckles white around the handle. "Hey!" the man barked, his voice cutting through the storm. "That boy's mine! Put him down!" Adrian turned, his red tie glowing faintly under the streetlight, his breath steaming in the air. "Yours?" he demanded. "He's half frozen in a wreck. He needs a hospital, not your fists." The man advanced, wrench raised. "He's my responsibility. You don't get to decide." Adrian didn't move. His voice was steady, dangerous. "No, tonight I do." Milo whimpered from the back seat, clutching his lighthouse. The snow howled, and in that moment, Adrian knew the battle for the boy's life had only begun. Roy Harlan's boots crunched across the ice as he swung the wrench in his hand like a warning. His breath steamed in the night air, eyes bloodshot, face red with cold and anger. "That's my woman's kid," he growled. "You think you can just drive off with him? Who the hell are you?" Adrian planted himself between the man and the SUV. Snowflakes clung to his dark hair, his broad shoulders square against the storm. "I'm the man, making sure he doesn't die tonight." Roy spat in the snow. "Mind your business, suit. Kid's fine. Just teaching him tough." Adrian's blue eyes flashed. He remembered hunger gnawing at his stomach as a boy, the sound of fists against walls, the long nights outside. "Hypothermia isn't tough. It's fatal." Roy lunged forward, swinging the wrench. Eddie stepped out from the driver's side, raising his arms. "Easy, pal. Don't do something stupid." But Adrian didn't flinch. He caught Roy's wrist mid-swing, his grip iron. For a long second, the storm seemed to hold its breath. Then, Adrian shoved the man back into the snow, his voice low but deadly calm. "Go inside. If you come near him again, you'll answer to me and to the law." Roy scrambled up, face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "That kid's mine to handle." "Not anymore," Adrian said. His tone left no room for argument. He turned and slid into the SUV, shutting the door against Roy's shouting. Milo huddled beneath the blanket, clutching the broken lighthouse nightlight. His lips trembled. He gets mad when Mom's gone." Adrian softened his voice. "You don't have to explain, Milo. You're safe now." Eddie floored the accelerator. The SUV fishtailed slightly before gripping the icy street and speeding off. In the rearview mirror, Roy shrank into the snowstorm, his threats drowned by the wind. Inside the warm vehicle, Milo's small body shivered under the blanket. Adrian leaned closer, checking his pulse with steady hands. Too fast, too weak. He had seen this look before, in shelters, in cold basements, in himself years ago. "Hospital's 15 minutes, Eddie said, eyes fixed on the road. Adrian nodded. He held Milo closer, murmuring steady words. "Stay with me, son. I've got you." The boy's eyelids fluttered, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't leave me." The words pierced Adrian like glass. He thought of the night he had whispered the same plea to a door that never opened. His throat tightened. "I won't," he promised. "Not tonight. Not ever." Milo's grip tightened around the little lighthouse. The cracked plastic pressed into Adrian's palm as if transferring the boy's last strength. When they skidded to a stop under the emergency entrance, Adrian carried Milo in his arms through the sliding glass doors. The ER staff rushed forward, eyes widening at the sight of the CEO in a snow-dusted suit carrying a frail, barefoot child. "What happened?" a nurse asked. "Exposure, hypothermia, malnourished," Adrian said crisply. "Start a warm IV. He needs fluids and monitoring." The staff hurried Milo onto a gurney. Adrian followed, refusing to let go of the boy's hand until a doctor gently nudged him aside. "Sir, we'll take it from here," the doctor said. Adrian's chest rose and fell, the adrenaline finally catching up. He realized his red tie was loose, his coat gone, his socks missing. all given to a child who wasn't his. But as he watched Milo disappear behind swinging ER doors, clutching that broken lighthouse nightlight, Adrian knew this was no random encounter. It was destiny reaching out through the snow, demanding he answer. The fluorescent lights in the ER hallway flickered faintly as Adrian paced, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum. He had stood in plenty of lobbies, closed deals in glass towers, but waiting here felt heavier than any boardroom silence. A nurse approached, her scrubs rustling. "We've stabilized him, but he's severely underweight and hypothermic. The doctor wants to run labs." Adrian nodded. "I'll cover whatever it costs." She gave him a look, half curious, half skeptical, but didn't press. "You can wait here. He'll be admitted soon." When she left, Adrian pulled the lighthouse nightlight from his pocket. Its cracked shell caught the light as if refusing to go dark. He turned it over in his hand, remembering the boy's weak whisper, "Don't leave me." Footsteps echoed. A man in a worn leather jacket strode down the corridor, jaw set, eyes cold. Roy Harlan. Adrian stiffened. Roy jabbed a finger at him. "You think you can just steal a kid out of my car? That's kidnapping." Adrian's voice dropped, calm but firm. "Leaving a child to freeze isn't parenting. It's neglect." Roy sneered. "He's my girlfriend's boy. That makes him my responsibility. He's toughening up." "Starving him? Letting him sleep in a junk heap?" Adrian stepped closer, his jaw tight. "That's cruelty." Roy's knuckles whitened around a folder he carried. "I know people. You'll regret crossing me." Before Adrian could respond, a woman's voice cut through the tension. "Adrian." He turned. Tori Lamb, his attorney, approached with quick, measured steps. She carried a slim binder and a phone still glowing with fresh emails. "I got your call." Her sharp eyes swept over Roy. "And this must be the boyfriend." Roy bristled. "Who are you?" "His attorney," Tori said coolly. "And if you come within 10 feet of that boy again, you'll face more than empty threats." Adrian felt a flicker of relief. Tori never wasted words. She snapped open her binder. "I already pulled some records. Animal Control cited this repair shop 3 times for neglect. Neighbors filed noise complaints for shouting after midnight. And bulk receipts, pet food, gallons of it. Yet no receipts for groceries." Roy's face darkened. "So? That proves nothing." "It proves a pattern," Tori replied sharply. "And patterns build cases." Adrian leaned in, his voice low and steady. "Walk away, Roy. Because if you force this fight, I will bury you legally before the snow melts." For the first time, Roy faltered. His bravado cracked just a flicker before he spat on the floor. "You rich types think you can play savior. Fine. But the kid won't thank you." He turned sharply and stormed out, doors clanging behind him. The hallway fell quiet again. Adrian exhaled slowly. Tori arched a brow. "You didn't tell me we were jumping into child protection work tonight." Adrian looked at the lighthouse in his hand. "I didn't plan it, but I can't let him go back there." Tori studied him a moment, her tone softening. "This is personal, isn't it?" He met her gaze. "When I was a boy, I spent nights outside in the snow. No one came. No one said, 'Come in.' I swore if I ever had the power, I'd never let another child feel that." Tori's expression shifted from lawyerly calculation to quiet empathy. "Then we'll build this case, and we'll win." Behind the glass doors, Milo stirred under a tangle of hospital blankets, the lighthouse nightlight still clutched in his small fist. For Adrian, the path forward was no longer about balance sheets or skyscrapers. It was about one boy, one promise, and one battle he could not afford to lose. Morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, pale and cold against the sterile white walls. Adrian sat in a hard plastic chair beside Milo's bed, his broad shoulders hunched. His red tie loosened but still in place. The steady beeping of the monitor filled the silence, each sound reminding him the boy was still here, still breathing. Milo stirred, eyes flickering open. He blinked at Adrian, uncertain. The lighthouse nightlight lay on the bedside table, its cracked surface dulled under fluorescent light. "You stayed," Milo whispered, his voice rough. Adrian leaned closer. "I told you I would." Before Milo could reply, Tori entered, her heels clicking softly. She carried a file thick with papers, her face composed but urgent. "I've started gathering evidence," she said quietly, glancing at the boy. "We'll need to move quickly if we want the court to intervene." Adrian nodded. "Show me." She spread documents across the side table. First, neighbors. 3 statements already. Shouting at night, the boy locked outside, sometimes for hours. Second, animal control. Reports of a starved cat at the repair shop, clear neglect. Third, receipts. Bulk purchases of pet food, not groceries. The implications obvious. Adrian's jaw tightened. They were feeding the animals while Milo starved. Tori's voice softened, though her words were sharp. "Yes. And that paints a picture of cruelty no judge will ignore." Milo's small hand reached toward the lighthouse. He turned it over in his palm, whispering to himself as if the object still held a glow. Adrian watched him, remembering his own nights of clutching scraps, anything to feel less alone. "We'll need medical confirmation," Tori added. "If doctors back this up, we'll have more than testimony. We'll have proof." As if summoned, the pediatrician entered, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. She looked over her clipboard, then at Adrian. "Mr. Westcott, we ran a full panel. The boy's malnourished, dangerously too. Signs of chronic hunger." She hesitated. "Lab results also found trace elements of pet food in his stomach. Likely desperation." Adrian closed his eyes briefly, pain flickering across his face. The skyscrapers he built, the towers of steel and glass, none of them had kept this boy from eating scraps meant for an animal. The doctor continued gently. "We'll keep him under observation for now, but long-term? He'll need consistent nutrition, therapy, and trust." Her gaze lingered on Adrian. "He'll need stability." Adrian nodded, though a shadow crossed his expression. Could he be that stability, or was he doomed to repeat the abandonment he'd once suffered? When the doctor left, Adrian turned back to Tori. "File for emergency protective custody. Today." Tori studied him. "You're sure about this? Guardianship cases get messy, especially when the press gets wind of who you are." Adrian's blue eyes hardened with resolve. "I don't care about headlines. I care about that boy." Milo looked up from his lighthouse, voice fragile. "You mean me?" Adrian reached out, steadying the boy's trembling hand. "Yes, Milo. You." For the first time, a flicker of trust sparked in the boy's eyes, tentative but real. And in that moment, Adrian felt the weight of a vow forming inside him, stronger than any deal he'd ever signed. Outside, the snow still fell, blanketing the city in silence. But in this small room, something new was beginning. Not just a case, not just an obligation, but a bond that could change them both. The day blurred into night, the city's snow-muted hum pressing faintly against the hospital windows. Adrian hadn't left Milo's side. He sat with his suit jacket draped over the chair, his red tie still knotted, though it hung loose, a symbol of everything he had shed in these 24 hours. A nurse brought a tray of broth, toast, and fruit. Milo picked at the edges, shoulders curled like he expected the food to vanish before he could finish. "You can eat all of it," Adrian said gently, "and if you want more, I'll bring more." Milo's eyes darted upward. He used to count how many bites I took." Adrian felt the words cut deeper than any boardroom betrayal. He leaned forward, steady, careful. "No one's counting now. You eat until you're full." The boy's lips trembled as he lifted the spoon. He took 3 hesitant sips of broth, then clutched the lighthouse nightlight as though needing its permission to keep going. Tori arrived with a folder thickened by signatures and affidavits. She dropped it on the side table with a decisive thud. "The case is forming. We have neighbors, records, animal control, now medical confirmation. Judge Green will grant us a hearing tomorrow morning." Adrian straightened. "And Milo?" "He'll testify in chambers, not open court," Tori said. "But Adrian, you need to prepare yourself. The defense will argue you're a billionaire using your influence to steal someone else's child." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Let them. I'll stand on the truth." Later, when the ward grew quiet, Adrian walked down the sterile hallway, his reflection trailing in the polished floor. He stopped at a vending machine, staring at the rows of snacks. His chest tightened. He had once begged a machine like this for mercy, pounding on the glass when hunger made him dizzy. He had been a boy not much older than Milo, frozen and unseen. When he returned to the room, Milo was asleep, curled beneath blankets, the lighthouse pressed against his chest like a talisman. Adrian stood over him, hands in his pockets, wondering, what if I fail him too? The thought followed him into uneasy sleep. In his dreams, the cold pressed in again, a door locked against him. Voices laughing on the other side. He woke with a start, heart pounding. By morning, the hearing loomed. Tori met him outside the courthouse, snow dusting her dark coat. "Judge Green is tough but fair," she said. "He'll listen, but Milo's words will matter most." Adrian inhaled, watching his breath fog in the frigid air. Then Milo needs to know he isn't alone. Inside chambers, the room was warm but solemn. Judge Green, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, sat behind his desk. Milo shuffled in, lighthouse clutched in his hand, his feet small against the vast rug. The judge leaned forward kindly. "Milo, can you tell me what inside means to you?" The boy hesitated, then pulled a folded drawing from his pocket. Crayons marked the page, a car buried under snow, and beside it a house glowing with light. Scrawled beneath were the words, "Inside means safe." The room held still. Adrian's throat tightened as he watched the boy, the fragile courage in his small shoulders. Judge Green set the drawing down with care. "Thank you, Milo. That was very brave." Adrian clenched his fists at his sides, silently vowing, whatever this court decided, he would make those words true. The gavel had not yet fallen, but the weight of the judge's silence lingered long after Milo's drawing was set down. Adrian watched the boy shuffle out of chambers with the bailiff, lighthouse still clutched in his hand. He wanted to scoop him up, to shield him from every harsh word that might follow, but the law demanded distance. Judge Green adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Westcott, Ms. Lamb, the interim placement will be decided tomorrow. Until then, Milo is to remain in state custody." Adrian's jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, to shout that Milo had already been through enough, but Tori pressed a hand discreetly against his arm, a quiet warning. "Yes, Your Honor," she said evenly. When they left the courthouse, the wind whipped through the streets, rattling the bare branches. Adrian loosened his tie, staring up at the gray Chicago sky. "He doesn't belong in foster care, not even for a night." Tori exhaled a cloud of breath. "I know, but you made an impression. The judge saw your sincerity, and Milo's testimony was powerful. Still, the court has to move by process. We'll fight again tomorrow." That night, Adrian lay awake in his penthouse, the silence pressing against him like a second skin. The city stretched below, streets lit, windows glowing, but inside his glass walls he felt the same cold he had as a boy on the stoop. He closed his eyes and heard Milo's whisper again, "Will you come back?" The next morning, Adrian returned to court, resolve hardening like ice. The hearing stretched long. Roy showed up with a lawyer who argued that Adrian's wealth and status made him dangerous, that he could buy outcomes. The insinuation stung deeper than expected. During recess, Adrian caught Milo's gaze across the hall. The boy's shoulders were small, his eyes wide with worry. He mouthed one word. "Always?" Adrian stepped closer, bending down so his deep voice reached only him. "Always." he said, steady as bedrock. "I'll never leave you." Tears welled in Milo's eyes, but he nodded, clutching the lighthouse tighter. That promise, Adrian knew, was no courtroom statement. It was a vow written on his very bones. He had once been the boy waiting outside the door. Never again, not for Milo. When the session resumed, Judge Green studied both sides carefully. The court recognizes the boy's clear expression of fear regarding his prior home environment. Given the testimony and medical evidence, interim foster placement will stand, with visitation rights granted to Mr. Westcott. The words struck like a double-edged sword. Adrian had not lost, but he had not fully won. Outside, reporters swarmed the steps, microphones shoved toward him, questions firing. "Mr. Westcott, are you trying to adopt the boy? Is this a publicity stunt for your real estate empire? What's your connection to Milo?" Adrian's jaw tightened. He ignored the cameras, focusing only on the frail silhouette being led into a state car. Milo turned once, eyes searching. Adrian raised a hand, meeting his gaze. "I'll come back," Adrian mouthed. "Always." Milo pressed the lighthouse to the window as the car pulled away, a silent beacon through the glass. That night, Adrian stood in his penthouse kitchen, the city sprawling beneath him. He opened a box and began to fill it with granola bars, fruit packs, and little things that would never run out. He set it by the door, labeling it with two simple words: the Always Box. It was a promise in physical form, something Milo could trust, even when Adrian couldn't be there. But as he sealed the box, Adrian knew. This fight wasn't just about custody. It was about proving, to Milo and to himself, that some doors stayed open forever. Snow whipped sideways across the courthouse steps the following morning, turning the city into a gray and white blur. Adrian arrived early, his custom navy suit sharp even in the storm, his red tie drawn tight. He carried a leather folder under one arm, but inside him churned something no business deal had ever stirred. Fear. Fear of failing the boy who had whispered, "Always?" Inside chambers, Judge Green leaned forward. His voice was firm, measured. "Before we proceed, I'd like to hear again from the child, in his own words." The bailiff brought Milo in, bundled in an oversized sweater. The boy clutched his cracked lighthouse nightlight like a talisman. He glanced nervously at Adrian before focusing on the judge. "Milo," Judge Green said gently, "can you tell me what inside means to you?" Milo's small fingers fumbled with a folded piece of paper. He laid it carefully on the judge's desk. The drawing showed a car buried under snow, scribbled in dark crayon. Next to it stood a house, yellow light spilling from its windows. Across the bottom, in shaky letters, he had written, "Inside means safe." The room fell silent. The judge studied the drawing for a long moment, then looked at Milo. "And where do you feel safe?" Milo's voice was barely a whisper, but clear. "With him." He pointed at Adrian. Adrian's chest constricted. He forced himself not to move, not to let the swell of emotion break his composure. Roy's attorney scoffed. "He's a child. Easily influenced. My client." Judge Green silenced him with a raised hand. "I've heard enough for today." When Milo was escorted out, Adrian caught his eyes. He gave a small nod, lips forming the word, "Always." Milo clutched the lighthouse tighter, as though it confirmed the promise. That evening, back in his penthouse, Adrian sat at the kitchen island, the city glowing beneath the storm. He pulled a wooden box across the counter and began filling it with small, steady comforts. Granola bars, socks, a flashlight, even a pack of hot cocoa. On the lid, he carved two words with a penknife, "Always Box." Later, when he visited Milo at the foster placement, the boy's eyes widened as Adrian set the box down. "It never runs out," Adrian explained softly. "Snacks, warmth, stories. It's yours, always." Milo ran his fingers over the carved letters, a smile ghosting his lips. For the first time, he let out a small laugh when Adrian demonstrated how the cocoa powder made chocolate milk swirl. The sound filled the modest kitchen with a warmth stronger than any furnace. But even in that fragile peace, shadows lingered. Adrian knew Roy wouldn't disappear quietly. He could already sense the storm building, not in the sky this time, but in headlines waiting to be written, in whispers of scandal that could cripple everything he had built. Still, as Milo leaned against his side that night, lighthouse glowing faintly on the bedside table, Adrian understood. Skyscrapers could crumble, fortunes could vanish, but this vow, always, was unshakable. The storm outside had calmed, but in Adrian's chest a different storm gathered. The next week brought no peace. Milo remained in temporary foster care, and each visit ended with the boy's soft whisper, "Will you come back?" Every time, Adrian knelt to meet his eyes, his voice steady. "Always." But one night, after a particularly long day in court, Milo clung to his sleeve, desperate. "They say maybe I'll get moved again. Will you still find me?" Adrian's throat tightened. He pressed the boy's hand over the lighthouse lamp glowing beside the bed. "Even if I have to search every corner of this city, I'll find you. I will never leave you, Milo." Those words echoed in Adrian's head as he sat later in his penthouse, city lights scattered below like fallen stars. He loosened his red tie, staring at the skyline he had shaped with glass and steel. He could build towers that touched the clouds, but could he build a home for one frightened boy? The next morning, court convened again. Roy sat across the aisle, his smirk oily, his lawyer whispering strategy. When Milo was brought in, he looked smaller than ever, clutching the lighthouse nightlight like a shield. During a break, Milo tugged Adrian's sleeve. His eyes brimmed with fear. "If they send me back, will you still come?" Adrian knelt, his voice low, firm. "Yes, always. No matter what." When the judge returned, Adrian gave his testimony. Not as a CEO, but as a man who once knew the sting of cold nights and closed doors. "I know what it is to be forgotten," he said, voice raw. "I won't let that happen to him." The judge studied him a long time, then looked at Milo. The boy's whisper carried across the room, clear enough, "I want to stay with him." The hearing adjourned with no final decision, but Adrian walked out with Milo's hand tucked in his, lighthouse clutched between them. The press swarmed the steps, questions firing. "Mr. Westcott, are you seeking custody? Is this charity or publicity?" Adrian ignored the noise. All he heard was Milo's small voice repeating the one word that mattered. Always. That night, Milo curled in the back seat of Adrian's SUV, worn from the long day. Before drifting to sleep, he whispered, "You came back." Adrian looked down at the boy's steady breathing, then out at the snow swirling faintly in the streetlights. For the first time in years, his vow was not just to himself, but spoken into the fragile trust of a child who believed him. And he would not break it. Snow softened the city sidewalks as Adrian unlocked the door to his penthouse. This time, Milo stepped in beside him, small hand still clutching the cracked lighthouse nightlight. The boy's eyes widened at the towering windows, the view spilling over Chicago, but he didn't let go of Adrian's sleeve. "It's too big," Milo whispered. Adrian crouched to meet his gaze. "Then we'll make it smaller. Just ours." He led Milo to the kitchen, where the always box sat on the counter. Adrian opened it with a little flourish. "See? Snacks, cocoa, socks by the door. This box never runs out." Milo peeked inside, skeptical, then giggled softly as Adrian handed him a granola bar. "Always?" "Always," Adrian promised. That night, Adrian showed him the guest room, now transformed. Blankets piled thick, a lamp shaped like a lighthouse glowing warmly on the nightstand. "It's not broken," Adrian said softly, brushing dust from its shade. "This one will shine every night." Milo's eyes glimmered. "Can you read me a story?" Adrian hesitated. He hadn't read aloud since childhood, but he pulled a book from the shelf and began. His deep voice filled the room, steady as the snow falling outside. Halfway through, Milo giggled when Adrian tripped over a silly rhyme. Adrian laughed too, a sound rusty but genuine. Later, when Milo drifted to sleep, Adrian tucked the blanket around him and laid his red tie beside the lighthouse lamp. A quiet vow, silent but binding. Forever. The next days became rituals. Breakfast together, socks lined neatly by the door, bedtime cocoa from the always box. Adrian found himself smiling at small things, the way Milo stirred soup, the way his laughter echoed off marble floors that once felt empty. But peace was short-lived. Headlines erupted across the city. Billionaire CEO kidnaps boy. Roy had released an edited video showing Adrian carrying Milo from the junked SUV but cutting out the context. News anchors debated, sponsors called, and Westcott Development's stock dipped sharply. Tori slammed the newspaper down on Adrian's desk. "It's a smear campaign. He's painting you as a kidnapper." Adrian's face hardened. "Let them talk. I'm not backing down." Tori leaned in. "Your empire is at risk. Sponsors are nervous. Investors want answers." Adrian glanced at a photo on his desk. Milo holding the lighthouse lamp, smiling shyly. "I built towers for this city. If they crumble because I chose to save a child, then maybe they were never worth building." That evening, Milo tugged Adrian's sleeve as they set the lighthouse lamp aglow. "Why are people mad at you?" Adrian knelt, voice soft. "Because they don't understand yet. But you, do you trust me?" Milo nodded without hesitation. "Always." In that word, Adrian found steel stronger than any skyline. He knew storms would come, media, courts, enemies, but the bond they were building would not bend, and for the first time in years, as the lighthouse lamp cast a circle of warm light, Adrian felt truly at home. The fallout came fast. By Monday morning, the Westcott Tower lobby swarmed with reporters. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward, voices barked questions that echoed off the marble walls. "Mr. Westcott, are you facing charges? Did you kidnap the boy? Is this a PR stunt to boost your real estate projects?" Adrian walked through the chaos in his custom navy suit, red tie perfectly knotted. His face was calm, but inside he felt the strain pulling tight across his chest. Eddie and Tori flanked him, shielding him from the worst of the crowd. Upstairs, the boardroom buzzed with tension. A sponsor had withdrawn from a major development project, and the CFO slammed a report onto the polished table. "Our stock dipped 8 points in 2 days. If this continues, lenders will pull back." Adrian remained standing, his hands on the back of a chair. "Let them pull back. Money can be rebuilt. Trust cannot." The room fell silent. Some directors glanced away, others frowned. They were used to Adrian fighting tooth and nail for numbers, not defending a boy with a broken lighthouse lamp. After the meeting, Tori cornered him in his office. "They're scared. You're putting billions at risk for this fight." Adrian leaned against the window, the city sprawling beneath him. "What good is building homes for strangers if I let one child sleep in the snow?" Her expression softened. "Then we go all in. No hedging. No apologies." That evening, Adrian returned home late. Milo was waiting in the kitchen, lighthouse lamp glowing faintly on the counter. He clutched the always box, eyes anxious. "People were shouting about you on TV," Milo said quietly. "They said you're bad." Adrian sat beside him, lowering his voice. "Sometimes people don't see the truth right away, but I need you to remember something. What matters is what's real. Do you feel safe here?" Milo nodded quickly. "Safe. Inside." Adrian placed a hand over his. "Then that's all the truth I need." For a moment, silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Then Milo whispered, "If they take you away, what happens to me? Adrian's chest ached. He pulled the boy into his arms, steady and firm. No one is taking me away, and even if the world falls apart, I will find you. Always. Milo buried his face against Adrian's chest, his small shoulders shaking. The lighthouse lamp glowed beside them, casting its fragile circle of light. But Adrian knew this storm wasn't over. Tomorrow, he would step before cameras, before judges, before the city itself, and he would choose. Not skyscrapers, not headlines, but a boy who needed him more than the world's approval ever could. The press conference lights were blinding. Hotter than any boardroom spotlight Adrian had ever faced. Rows of reporters crowded the hall, cameras rolling, microphones angled like weapons. Behind him, a backdrop of his company's logo gleamed. But tonight, the empire he'd built was trembling. He adjusted his red tie, then spoke into the silence. 9 million children in America face hunger every year. Last week, I found one of them freezing in the back of a junked car. His voice deepened, steady but raw. His name is Milo. He is not a headline. He is a boy who deserves safety. Whispers rustled through the crowd. Adrian continued. Some will say I acted recklessly. That I overstepped. But when I saw him clutching a broken lighthouse lamp in the snow, I remembered the boy I once was, cold, hungry, locked out. I vowed then, and I vow now, no child should be left outside in the cold. A reporter shouted, "What about your company's losses?" Adrian's eyes burned blue with resolve. If my empire crumbles because I saved one child, then let it crumble. I'll build again, this time on a foundation of compassion. The room erupted with questions, but Adrian turned away, leaving them unanswered. Some saw weakness, but Milo, watching later from the penthouse sofa, saw only strength. That night, Adrian sat beside him, the always box open, lighthouse lamp glowing. I told the world about you, Adrian admitted softly. I hope that's okay. Milo's small hand gripped his. You didn't let them scare you. Adrian smiled faintly. Because you remind me what matters. The next morning, Adrian signed papers establishing the Westcott Foundation for Child Welfare. Millions pledged for shelters, safe homes, and food programs. He spoke of statistics, but his eyes lingered on Milo, knowing this fight was more than numbers. Sponsors grumbled, investors fretted, but community leaders reached out. Families wrote letters. A wave of voices rose, not in condemnation, but in support. That evening, as snow drifted quietly over the city, Milo leaned against Adrian's side. You didn't build another tower, he said drowsily. You built me a home. Adrian pressed his chin gently against the boy's hair. And it's the best thing I've ever built. The lighthouse lamp glowed steady beside them, no longer broken, its light reaching further than either of them could see. The winter wind howled around the glass walls of the penthouse, but inside, warmth spread through every corner. Milo sat cross-legged on the rug, the lighthouse lamp glowing at his side. He turned it on and off, testing its steady light as if making sure it would never fail. Adrian watched from the sofa, his red tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He had spent the day fielding calls from shaken investors, yet all that mattered now was the small boy giggling at a lamp. Dad? Milo's voice was tentative, almost fragile. Adrian's heart stilled. What did you say? Milo looked down, fiddling with the lamp's switch. I wanted to see if it felt real, if you'd stay. Adrian knelt beside him, eyes burning. Say it again. Milo's lips curved shyly. Dad. Adrian swallowed hard, placing his hand over the boy's. I'm not going anywhere, Milo. Not now. Not ever. To seal the vow, he removed his red tie, the symbol of every boardroom and empire he had conquered, and laid it beside the lighthouse lamp. This tie has been with me through every deal, every fight. But tonight, it belongs here, beside your light. It means forever. Milo touched the tie, then leaned against Adrian's chest. His breathing slowed, steady, safe. Later, as Adrian tucked him into bed, Milo whispered, "Inside means safe. With you, it always does." Adrian brushed the boy's hair back. "Forever," he promised. And, for the first time in decades, the word didn't feel fragile. It felt true. Snow drifted outside the windows. But the storm that had once defined Adrian's life was gone. In its place, there was only the soft glow of the lighthouse lamp and the quiet trust of a child who had finally found home. Months later, the courtroom had finally delivered its verdict. Roy Harlan was convicted of child endangerment and animal neglect, his lawyer disbarred for attempting to manipulate evidence. The headlines were sharp, clean, and definitive. Justice had been served. Adrian stood beside Milo on the courthouse steps, the lighthouse nightlight safely tucked into the boy's backpack. The snow that fell was gentle, a light dusting that sparkled under the city lights, no longer menacing. Milo's small hand fit perfectly into Adrian's, and for the first time, Adrian felt the weight of every promise he had ever made, fulfilled. Back at Westcott Developments, the skyline gleamed in early morning sunlight, but Adrian's vision had shifted. Towers of steel and glass were no longer enough. He redirected resources toward humane housing projects, community programs, and shelters, ensuring that no child would be left out in the cold again. In the penthouse, the lighthouse lamp glowed warmly beside Adrian's red tie. Milo lay asleep, peaceful and secure. Adrian watched him, chest tightening with pride and quiet relief. He had not only gained a son, but a renewed purpose. The city beyond the windows bustled and roared, unaware of the quiet transformation that had taken place inside one apartment, one life. Adrian traced his hand along the lamp, remembering every snowy night, every child left outside, and he vowed silently that their safety, their trust, and their hope would always be his mission. The skyscrapers he built could touch the sky, but the home he had created for Milo, rooted in love, trust, and protection, would last forever. The storm had passed. The light shone steady, and for the first time, Adrian knew that being a father, a protector, and a man of promise was the greatest legacy he could ever leave.